Welcome to the Wild Physio Podcast with your host, Andrew Wild. Today, I welcome Hayden Egerton, who is an exercise physiologist and founder of Resilience Rehab and Performance. Hayden's business is now 100% online, and he works with a variety of populations, including rugby league and long drive golf athletes. Hayden's passion is helping people understand and manage pain. He's a weapon on Instagram. A huge welcome to Hayden Egerton.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. We were just discussing off air how I found you. It was via the Long Drive boys, I think, Seb Twaddle and Matt Stubbs, doing some great work. And when I jumped on your Instagram, I noticed that you were cutting through the crap and you were calling out all the bullshit that people spruik these days. And I loved it. I was like, this guy is right on my alley. I've got to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, I've been it just happened. I just like a bit of a backstory. I was when I used to go to the gym when I was younger, I'd always see these guys like doing foam rolling, doing stretching, and I was like the skinny 17-year-old who just got into gym, and I'd be like, oh, like this is what you do. So I'd try to foam roll, I'd sit on there for hours, I'd stretch, I'd do everything, and then either the next day or that other, I'd go, my hamstring's still tight, my back still hurts. I tried everything. I bought belts, I basically everything I shit on, I've tried in the past. And then, yeah, I said there's not literally, but I was like, there's got to be like a better way. And I'd read things. I'd look at like the old bodybuilding.com things. Like when I say it to my clients, I'm like, I literally used to be the person you are now. Like, that's why I understand it. And then, yeah, I just tried everything. And then here we are. Like I went into EP, did that. And then now I'm here chatting shit about myth busting.
Speaking of myth busting, let's start there. So when it comes to your Instagram, you're obviously busting a lot of myths on there. Now, when it comes to passive treatments, acupuncture, cupping, massage, these type of things, what's your take on those treatments? I have seen on Instagram you've done a cupping and you said it's complete and utter bullshit, and I agree. Where do you stand with it? And is there a place for any of those passive modalities?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I love how you're a physio and you're saying it's bullshit. Like there's so many, and that's half the problem is people just, it's one of those things. I don't know if I did this. I don't know if you saw the video where I did on the monkeys, like how there's the monkeys in the cage and they get, and it's that sums up everything. It's not even passive treatment, but literally everything we do these days is a result of people have done it and it gets passed on. If you asked people, hey, why are you doing this? Their answer is literally, oh, it's just how it's always been done. That's how I've always done it. And there is a place, like I have not arguments, but like mini tiffs with my clients sometimes when they go, oh, I want to do acupuncture. Oh, you hate me, but I did stretching. And I'll always say, like, I don't mind if you do it. Like if a stretch feels good or going to acupuncture feels good for you, we know it's biopsychosocial. There is a massive placebo part of it, but I'll only get to that point once I actually have fully ingrained in their mind that this isn't doing what you think. Like as long as you deep down honestly know that a needle in you is not changing anything, getting pressed on is not changing anything, like actual tissue wise, as long as you know going in and getting scraped is not changing your fascia one bit, it's not breaking up adhesions and scar tissue, I'm all for it. But I've found by being honest and open with them and having these conversations and you get that buy-in, people then go, oh, wow, well, I actually don't need it. Like by educating people, they may do it a couple times, then they'll go, oh, this is such a waste of money. I'm paying $90 to go get something that doesn't help. But in acute rehab, like when you start working with someone who may have just, like ACL is a perfect example, or a hamstring tear or something, and you have this neural guarding, it can be helpful. And I'll always advocate for, but it should only be massage, really, if we're being honest. Like getting a deep rub, getting some things released. Like I know you don't get things released, but getting things relaxed by putting that input into the nervous system. Like when I tore my hammy, I went and got massage because I was heaps tight in my hips and glutes and back. You get a bit of massage, it's like, oh, I can go run now. I can go do my rehab session. And you work in this range that short-term range it's given you. So there are definitely times for it, but my main thing, like we've talked about before, is like when people are chronic pain, long-term injuries, knee things, and it's like, oh, I just have to go do my weekly massage. Like I saw some bloke, he was actually a physio or an S&C, and he went, oh, I'm getting my weekly tune-up. So like you can see it's ingrained that it's like, oh, I have to get my weekly tune up. And it's like, you don't have to, you like chiros, again, there's good and bad of every profession, but chiros, physios, EPs, even like they may not even know, but B, there are some dodgy ones that are like, no, come back in. We got to do this because of XYZ research. And it just pisses me off. Like when you see that and when you see what results you can get without it, and how much happier people are when they go, wow, I don't need all this stuff. It is, if I just can manage my flare ups or manage my stress, or, hey, I'm not sleeping right at the moment. That's why I'm a bit flared up and I'm a bit tight and sore. Like, and when you can start to link those things, not only do you actually keep them on for longer because they trust you and see the value, but you can empower them to actually go and be independent and self-sufficient.
You put the power back in their hands.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like, a lot of people think like, when I say stuff like this, they're like, oh, you're just saying that because if you have to, but like genuinely some of my like happiest moments or feelings with clients is when they come to me and they'd be like, wow, like I was here and I got a bit of a flare up or back pain. And I actually thought Hayden said this, and I thought to myself, and 10 minutes later, I was walking again and I was lifting in the gym. So when it gets to the point they're thinking of me and they're thinking of what I've told them, and they're like, wow, I'm not injured, I'm not stuffed, I'm not broken. And 10 minutes later, they're happy. And that's genuinely like, I'm like, fuck, like I'm doing something. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I love the fact that you're empowering people to realize that they're not fragile, which is phenomenal. And it's everything that I preach as well. And
Yeah.
when it comes to that, obviously pain education is so important. So it being a passion project of yours. So for the listeners, could you just describe what pain is? How do you explain it? And what are some of the examples that you would often give a patient for them to understand it?
Yeah. So we said we had 30 minutes, so we might take about 3.5 hours here because I'll go off on a tangent. But one of the biggest things with pain is we need, like, and I did a post on a couple of days ago, is there's so many easy ways to explain it. Like I've got like 10, 15 ways, but the one that clicks the most is like, all it is your brain sending you a message to say, hey, hold up, what you're doing now, for whatever reason that I've calculated out of all these things, there's potential that you may have done something wrong here. So it's like I say, what if I said to you, hey, when you get thirsty, what's your brain telling you to do?
A drink.
Have a drink. When you get hot, what's it telling you to do?
Probably cool down.
Cool down, take your jumper off, turn the heater off. All these, our brain can't speak words to us. So our brain uses messages and feelings. It uses a feeling. And all pain is this unpleasant emotional experience, this unpleasant discomfort in you, this feeling that makes you go, hold up, wait a minute, I'm going to go have a look at that. Please check it out because you may have done something wrong. And worst case, if you haven't, you're fine. Go off and do your thing. But if you have, at least we can go get fixed. You can stop what you're doing and get it fixed, get treatment. And when we talk about pain, like so many people think, oh, the back pain one is the best example. It's like, oh, I've got back pain, so it must be that I've hurt my back. Or I've had back pain and I've just always had back pain, whatever. And the best example I give for back pain is like, how long, let's say you break your arm, how long are you in a cast for?
6 weeks, give or take.
6 weeks.
Yeah.
People fracture their backs, or let's just use the fracture for an example so I can compare it to the bone, but someone will fracture their back, and then it's so ingrained in us that backs are fragile and backs are delicate and backs are so important, which you could argue that they are more important than an arm, but really the bone in our arm is the same bone in our back. We have bone. It's not like this bone takes half the time to heal just because it's in our arm. Bones have the same healing timeline. And when we look at this, for some reason, people come out of their cast and they never have pain in their arm again. But for some reason, and it's so complicated, there are so many reasons to it. But for some reason, when we hurt our backs, it's like, oh, I've got a back injury now. And you say, hey, when did you first do your back? It's like, oh, like the oldies are like, I love them. The oldies were so good when I was working with them, but they are a killer to work with because you say to them, when did you hurt your back? They go, oh, probably 30 years ago. And then I say to them, I'm like, okay, so let's say you broke your arm today. How long do you think that would heal? And they go, oh, 6-8 weeks. And I'm like, okay, why is your back taking 30 years? And then they go, oh, and they may, with those guys, they may have that click, but it's like, they don't go further enough to actually want to change it. But when you can actually relate in those examples that people actually can go, oh, wow, yeah, I never really thought of that. you can kind of start to change the messaging. And that's what it is with pain. And one of the biggest things obviously depends on what type of pain, how long they've had it, what they've tried, what their aggravators are like. And we might talk about biopsychosocial, but it's a part of it is like so many people these days are now going psychosocial. It's like, oh, we're in this biopsychosocial, and for some reason they conveniently forget there's a bio in it. So it's like, oh, it's all in your head. It's all your social system. It's all this. Whereas it used to be all bio. Like we need to get to this point where you can actually, and I've got this good graph somewhere I use in my presentations, is it's biopsychosocial. So if you split it up 33, 33, 33, someone might actually have 60% bio and 20% of the others. Or someone might have 80% psycho and 20% of or 10% of the others. So being able to, like before I even give anyone anything, going back to that question of what I give them once I do have it, it's what do they need? Like if you have someone, and another example I use, I told you I go on tangents, is if you had a billionaire and a single mother who can't afford rent, they both hurt their back. Tomorrow, they both hurt their back, the same injury, same method, etc. Who do you think is more likely for it to linger and be a serious problem?
Most likely probably the billionaire, because they go and seek a lot of treatment.
There's that. You could argue that, but I'd say the opposite, because a billionaire, he hurts his back. He's like, I've got a heap of money. I don't need to work. I can get the bikini ladies on my yacht to come and feed me my grapes. I can lay down. I can be on the Amalfi Coast on my $100 million yacht. I'm fine. There's no.
You could argue, because there is an argument there though that the treatment that we have all been giving for the last 60 years has made things worse.
And again, you know what I mean? this is why it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Because it's like there are both sides. But a good example I like to give in terms of that is I use that because it's like, in terms of stress and expectations, is yes, the billionaire, it's a good point. He may go, oh, I'm getting all these treatments, and the doctors may infer it in him.
He goes and it gets noceboed by the local chiro.
Yeah, that's a good point. So now I can't use that example with anyone anymore.
But I know what you're saying. You're saying that the single mother is more stressed. She's got a lot more things going on in her life.
She goes,
so she may not have as much time to go and see an exercise physiologist or a physiotherapist like me and get the help that she needs. So I hear you. Yeah.
It's like the mother might be like, I'm behind on rent. I've got to give my kid food. If I can't work because of my back injury, I'm not going to be able to pay rent and everything. So, oh my God, this back injury must be way worse. So the brain starts going, oh shit. You look at like expectations and coping strategies and all these beliefs she has around it. If she has a belief that my back's injured, pain's really bad, it must be broken, my expectations are now that I can't feed my kid, the brain will perceive that potentially. We know there's a lot of nuance to it, but will most likely perceive that as a lot worse. Like if I hurt my back today, I almost giggle at it. I'm like, tomorrow I'll be sweet.
Yeah.
And that's where this mindset expectations. So, and most of my people now, it is beliefs, expectations, coping strategies. So a few of my biggest things are like when people get a flare up, they don't realize it's a habit. They don't realize that sensation is the trigger. Rubbing it, stretching it, thinking about it, moving it, doing these little actions is the action that the body wants. The good feeling is like the reward. It's like, oh, okay, that feels better. What do we know about habits? They feed 95% of our day is built on habits. So if you have someone who gets a bit stressed or there is that trigger and they go, you start seeing them do this and they play with their neck and they stretch their arm, it is trigger, oh, feels better, gone. But it just reinforces to the brain, oh, there's something there. And every time I do it, he fixes it. So there must be something wrong. And this is where we get in those feedback loops and beliefs and habits and everything. And some of my focuses are like just breathing. Like, and again, we could go on the like different types of pain, and like some person might need isometrics because it's a tendon and you want to get the analgesic effect, etc. There's all the different types, but these long-term pains, like I had someone who was a boxer and he'd go in and box really hard, like smash it, be 100% fine, get home 3 hours later on the couch, he'd be like, oh my God, I'm in this uncomfortable position, my neck's sore. So like, if he can like, and he thought, oh, I need to get surgery, I need to get this, and I need to check this and go to specialists. He spent like 20 grand on specialists. Not one person asked him, have you ever heard about chronic pain? And that's where we say like the intensity, the frequency, the duration, the types, the location of pain is not related to the actual tissue itself. So he can box, but then as soon as he lays down, he has this belief that he always gets pain on the couch, boom, flare up. And when you start to actually, and everyone says, what's your best test? What's your best exercise? There is none. It is, what is this person's situation? What is this person's triggers? What is their load? Are they eating, sleeping, etc.? And then, okay, look, you have really bad beliefs. We need to work on that. You have really bad coping strategies. We need to work on that. We need to get you focusing away from, because one of the big, easiest things is stop trying to fix your pain. Like when you fixate on something and trying to get rid of it, it just makes you think about it more.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was just going to say that a lot of people get in this eliminating mindset where they can't just tolerate pain, and they need to always be pain free.
Exactly, and it's that's the worst place to be, because then if you're actively trying to be pain free, it's like the happy example. The happiest people in the world are the ones who don't care if they're happy. They're just doing their day-to-day stuff that they enjoy. But the moment you think, I need to be happy, your brain will look for every reason that it's not happy. And you go, oh, but I don't have this, so I can't be happy yet. Same thing. Oh, this hurt it, so I'm not fixed. Must be bad. Oh, when I walk up the stairs, it still hurts. Oh, not fixed, must be bad. And their brain, they don't realize it, but it gets in this loop of fix, fix, fix. Whereas I say to my people, like I'll give, depending on what their thing is, I'll give them a focus sheet. And I say, these are your focuses. So it might be, rather than trying to fix your back, focus on getting stronger, moving better, recovering better. These are your focuses. I want you to focus on that. And like, I'll have people come back and go, oh, my back actually felt really good. Like someone will say, oh, when I get in the car, my back always hurts. It's like, no shit. If you're always saying, when I hop in the car, my back always hurts, like, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah.
So it ends up, and I say to him, when you get in there and you start feeling a bit of tiredness or a bit of a trigger, take a few deep breaths. You'd be amazed what a couple of deep breaths can do for you. It literally relaxes. It drops our heart rate. It drops our blood pressure. It relaxes us. And as soon as they go that and they go, oh, okay, now I'll sing my favorite song. Boom, I'm distracted.
Do you think in the last 60 years, especially when we've kind of over medicalized everything and physiotherapists have become in existence, I suppose, in the last sort of 60, 70 years, and chiros, et cetera, do you think things are worse now than they would have been back in the 30s and 40s in a way? Because a lot of people are getting noceboed, and back then they would have just cracked on and been like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to get on with it.
I can't say exactly because I don't know the exact what everyone was like back then. I can't give a hard and fast answer, but 99%, I almost reckon, like, could you imagine a gladiator back in the day going, oh, my shoulder hurts, I'm going to have to tape it and get a massage?
Yeah.
They would have looked at their mates and gone, let's get into the Coliseum and fight each other.
Yeah. I didn't activate my serratus anterior before I went out and like fought a tiger.
Could you imagine that? The caveman just like, hold on, I need to do my glute band exercise so I can take this tiger down. You know what I mean? Like you're right. Like it's all medicalized now. It's like people go, oh, is the glute exercise good to fix my back? Is my, like, all this stuff that, but then when you actually type it out for them and you say, hey, your muscle gets activated, your brain sends a message down the spinal cord, peripheral nerves to the thing, electrical things contract, boom. They go, oh. And then when you say that, and the best example is if you got up out of bed unassisted, you got in your car unassisted, you walked in the gym door unassisted, and you went and grabbed a Bosu ball or a band, your glutes are fine. You would not be able to do all that.
Fair enough. If you can walk and stand up straight, your glutes are sweet.
Yeah. But so many people go, oh, I need to burn them and do this glute activation so they're prime.
Yeah.
And then they'll go do they'll go do like a split squat with their knee 50 meters over their toes and go, I wonder why my glutes aren't working. Like it's so frustrating. Like, and this is why I do all these posts and stuff, because it pisses me off. And I'm just like,
the activation thing, mate, is so annoying. Like, I get so many people come in and they're like, oh, they might start training with me or whatever, and they've been used to thinking that they need to pre-activate everything, and I've got 45 minutes with them and they're like, oh, just give me 10 minutes to warm up. I'm like, we're about to squat. All we need to do is just do a lighter version of the squat
version
up, and you're going to be sweet. So
hundred
yeah, I
percent.
agree. It's ridiculous. But also there's so many other bullshit myths out there. Like I grew up in the sort of the 90s, early 2000s, playing a lot of sport. And back then it was kind of ingrained in football culture, especially to stretch before you go out and play sport. And even still, there's a lot of people that stretch a lot and they think that stretching is going to help them. It's a pillar of health. Just
Don't get
go
me
through
started.
why stretching is isn't what it's cracked up to be and doesn't reduce your injury risk, doesn't warm you up, etc.
Don't get me wrong. Like stretching can work. If you stretch long enough, and this is the problem. This is the
Define work though.
whole problem. Yeah, exactly. When we look at stretching, it is just low load mechanical tension. It is tension in the muscle. The brain gets comfortable with that low load tension, right? It gets comfortable being in a bit of a longer position, right? So when it gets comfortable in that position, it's a safety message to the brain. Oh, I've been here so many times before. I'm happy with that. All tightness is a guarding mechanism of the body, or it is a sensation to say, hey, don't do this. Don't use that area. Tightness is your brain stopping you moving into ranges it doesn't feel safe. So if anything, when you have a sore hamstring or a tight hamstring, if anything, you cranking it into a deeper range is just going to piss the brain off more. And people, and again, I used to think this as well. I used to be the bloke who would go, my tummies and my hip flexors are so tight, I'm going to go stretch them. And that's the example of where it doesn't work. It's like, for whatever reason, your brain does not thinks there is something potentially wrong there. Like we look at the mechanisms the brain can use to protect us: pain, motor, sympathetic nervous system, endocrine, inflammation. You can use all these different things like swelling. You can like all these different things, tightness, etc. Motor changes. You look at a gait change. People think, and this is another one, I'm not going to go on a tangent on it, but someone's using their upper trap, so it must be overactive. It's like the brain just wants to do a task. If your shoulder is injured or painful or tight or sore or whatever, and you can't lift your shoulder and you're trying to lift your arm up, your brain is going to be like, my shoulder can't do it. I'll use something else instead. That's all it is. But people go, oh, no. Take your traps out of the shrug. Take the traps out of the
You got to
raise.
set your shoulder blade, bro.
Set your shoulder blade so you
It's
take
so
the traps out of it.
that's the most ridiculous.
And I literally just want to like, it makes me want to like quit the industry. But with stretching, it's like they think it's this fix of like, my muscle feels tight, so it must literally be shorter. So if I pull it apart, it'll be good again. But when we look at exercise and proper strength training with proper constraints, setups, exercise variations and progressions and regressions for the individual, that just progressing that in the ranges they can tolerate is higher mechanical tension. Like you're actually using weight now for it. So you're getting higher load and you're getting in deeper positions. You're lifting heavier weights. You're doing more reps. So it's the same thing, but better. And you get all these other systemic benefits of health, etc. And we know blood glucose, all these different things that resistance training does. Whereas people do the stretching, but the stretching doesn't even do what they think they do, because like they did this study. It was like you have to spend an hour a day in an orthotic brace at an 8 out of 10 intensity. Do you know how painful an 8 out of 10 stretch would be for an hour a day? No one's doing that. Debbie will chuck her fucking foot up on a chair, stretch it for 15 seconds at a 2 out of 10 intensity and go, my hammies are better now. So this is where that comes from. But then if we talk about what stretching can do, if you are in a position, like if you want to do the splits, you've like, yes, you can work on your groin and stuff in strength training, but you just have to do the splits every single day. There are specific reasons where if
you're building your tolerance to stretch.
Exactly. And if like you look at the gymnasts, they do spend half an hour, 2 hours a day stretching.
But there's no chance someone like me with a quote unquote more deep hip socket would be able to do the splits because I have predetermined mobility that won't allow me to do that. So this is something else I wanted to discuss, was the fact that there's so many of these mobility programs online now, when a lot of one's mobility is predetermined by their genetics, and you can't just like all of a sudden become the most flexible person in the world because you've got a freaking bone in
Oh,
the road, you
the
know?
the best example is squats. It actually, like, I have this joke with my mates and like friends and stuff. Like, I almost can't go to public gyms and train now because I get like, I will be just trying to do my own thing, listening to music, having a good time, and I'll look to the right and someone will be doing like a banded dorsiflexion drill, and then they'll go and do a squat that's low bar anyway. And I'm like, I get to the point, I'm way better now. But a year or two ago, I get irritated. I'd be like, oh, like, stop being an idiot. But like, the perfect example is a squat. It's like, oh, I'm going to do these banded traction drills of my ankle. And then I'm going to go do the banded, like, see, I don't even remember what it's called. I don't use it, where you put the band around your inner thigh and you pull it out.
Oh,
And you,
like a hip distraction with a band that's
yeah,
really stretchy, so it's actually going to
ex-
provide no resistance to the hip capsule at
exactly.
all.
See?
Yeah.
So they'll spend 45 minutes doing that. And then, but that you look at their femur and their proportions. We're not even talking about the hip socket now. We're talking that they have this anaconda like 3 meter long femur. And then they're exactly. And then people go, oh, I wonder why I can't. Then you ask those people, hey, do you know what center of mass is? And do you know what balance is and stuff? And they go, what? And
Yeah.
you're like, mate, if you just set up in a better position or used a heel raise constraint or did et cetera, it's like everyone goes, no, but like elevating your heels is cheating. It's artificial. It's fake. It's like, well, if you want to do a high bar squat and you have long femurs, you physically have to.
Well, when you're built like me and you've got a really long torso and you just are a shitty squatter, I'm a really good example. And I debunk this with myself in the clinic.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, watch me squat barefoot flat like this. And then I go, all right, watch me squat now with my heels up and watch what it looks like side on comparatively. And they're like, oh, right, that makes sense. I'm like,
Yeah. But
everyone's
then,
built
yeah.
completely differently. So
But
some people get away with it and don't need a heel wedge, and they can be quote unquote more functional because people think that it's more functional to squat barefoot.
uh,
It's just ridiculous. It's like, and it frustrates me the most that a lot of these mobility programs get spruiked online, that people think they're just going to all of a sudden become this mobility king or queen, when most of the changes you're going to see will just get done by just lifting shit in the gym. Like the changes in mobility are
yeah.
going to be exactly the same. And there's been multiple studies to show us that that's the case.
Yeah. And you look at like the biggest culprit is like all the CrossFitters and the Olympic lifters. They go to the Olympics, they get really good at weightlifting, and they get these titles and records, or they're Olympian, and they're like, oh, I'm going to sell my mobility program now. And then you look at their body and you're like, no shit, you were good at mobility.
Yeah. The sport chose them. Like,
Exactly. It's like the
yeah, yeah.
swimming example. You don't
Yep.
get big and strong and long from being a swimmer. You are a swimmer because you are big and strong and long.
It's like the conversation I have with a lot of women, because we see a lot of women at my clinic, and they'll often say that, oh, Pilates instructors look so good because they do Pilates. I'm like,
Oh,
they don't look
please.
like that. It's because they have A, really good genetics, B, they probably lift weights. They use Pilates as an adjunct. They just don't do Pilates.
Oh,
And their nutrition's on point, no doubt, as well. So they look great.
yeah.
So it's like
It's a,
they have created this body through Pilates, and you're like, well, no, there's a lot more
it's
to it than
swimmers.
that.
Like, I'll always use a swimmer example. It's like you see these jacked, shredded swimmers, and
Caleb
you're like,
Dressel,
yeah, you're like, okay,
yeah,
cool. But go look at what his entire week is.
yeah,
He eats like a machine and eats perfectly. He has a nutritionist. He does all the cardio in this pool, but then you go and look at like what he actually does in the weights room, or B, what he did before he even swam. He probably genetically was a bigger person, and he's just packs on muscle, and he's just genetically meant to look like that. And then people go, oh, I'll go pick up swimming to look like, or riding bikes. People are on the Tour de France and are fast peloton, whatever you call them, bike riders, because they had big quads and because they were muscly and because they had this good fitness or whatever. It's not that you, like, I'm not saying riding a bike isn't going to grow your quads a little bit if you do it every single day, but they got put in that sport because A, they probably liked riding, but B, they were like, wow, I'm actually really powerful and strong and I got big
they're
legs.
good at it. They're
they're
good
good
at
at
it.
it. And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
naturally selects them. And
yeah, hundred
people
percent.
then that's a CrossFitting example. It's like, oh, buy my mobility program, but then they don't realize if you bought it, it's not going to help you because you
No
naturally
way.
have those proportions anyway. So,
And this is
and that's
this
what I
is why
say.
I split squat over squatting, because it just feels a
Oh,
lot better. Like I go over a Bulgarian split squat and happy days. Like when I was about 4 years old, I remember my dad finally came and picked me up from gymnastics. So, and I loved it. And my dad picked me up, and dad's about 6'1" back then. And the coach was like, "Oh, don't bother getting Andrew to progress going forwards with gymnastics because he's just going to be too big."
see, there you
And
go.
like I would have been the worst gymnast. I'm 6'3" and I've got long levers. Most gymnasts are really short. I've got no
Exactly.
mobility
Go
whatsoever.
play
So
basketball or something.
yeah, exactly. I
Go
played
play
Aussie rules.
volleyball.
I played Aussie
Yeah,
rules. I played cricket. I'm still playing a bit of golf and tennis. So yeah, the sport often chooses you based off the fact that you're good at it because of how you're made up and you're good at
yeah.
it and you
And
keep
that's
doing
where
it.
you got to be careful of, and that's why I do say so much about like the online stuff. Is it's like people, it's the appeal to authority logical fallacy. It's like because X did it, that must be what got in there. You look at LeBron
Yeah.
James and Cristiano Ronaldo. They go, oh yeah, but LeBron and Ronaldo stretch, and LeBron and Ronaldo use the so right. And I'm like, come on, like, do you really think they are LeBron James and Cristiano Ronaldo because they use the so right and they release their psoas?
And also, they're doing everything in their power to squeeze the
Oh,
last little bit out of the lemon. And they're older now as well. So they'll do
exactly.
anything they could possibly get to get that 0.2% change.
Exactly. And that's
And
why I say it's fair enough.
they're already exercising. Nutrition's on point. They've got a nutritionist. They've probably got
Hyperbaric
a
oxygen
chef.
chambers.
They sleep in an hyperbaric oxygen chamber like LeBron does. Like it's like the lowest hanging fruit. Most people just need to get that. You don't need to get the fruit off the top of the tree.
Exactly. And that's actually a really good example. I say to them, I say, oh, so like if we start as clients and it's quite obvious that they're trying to pick the high hanging fruits, I say, riddle me this. You go to a apple tree and you drive 30 minutes out to the best apple tree. If you get there and there's fruit from the bottom to the top and they're all the same, are you going to then go, I can reach this one and it will be way easier and probably taste just as good and do just as much for me? Oh, no. I'm going to get back in my car, drive 45 minutes to Bunnings, buy a ladder, come back, climb up to the ladder, and then get the fruit from the top.
Or just try and climb it and then fall from the
Or
top
try
and
and climb.
die.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, and when you that's why I love analogies and metaphors, like especially with pain and stuff, like they are so powerful because you can quite easily link something that is quite technical for them and relate and make an example of it where they can go, oh yeah, that is a bit silly. So it's like when I say ice baths and massages and saunas, they cost a lot. They don't really have that much of a thing for the effort you're putting in. It's the same as you going to the apple tree going, hey, I'm not going to gym and eat and sleep, stuff it. I'm going to drive back, go to you know what I mean? And it can really link it. And I think bit of a side note, but it can be so powerful, just analogies and that. And like you said, like the apple trees are such a good one as well.
Yeah, definitely. Before we get on to how to hit the golf ball further, because I really want to touch on that, we're just going to dive into ice and why Dr. Gabe Merkin came out and said what he said and why people haven't bloody listened. The fact that ice physiologically isn't going to reduce swelling, it's indirectly going to reduce swelling if the person can then move a little bit more, do a little bit more exercise. It's so frustrating. And like the fact that I even watch football these days, and they do their
There's your
hamstring,
answer. There's your answer.
they do their hamstring or their calf or something like that, and they put ice on it. And I'm just like, why? Why are we still doing this?
The only thing I can say for that is when you have athletes, you might want to stop the initial swelling to get scans. So
Yes and no,
yeah,
but
that's the
like,
only reason I've seen, or that I could say, hey, maybe that's their rationale is, hey,
yeah.
we need to get scans tomorrow. Let's stop the swelling so we can get scans. And then it's worth sacrificing a couple of days to get a better scan and have a better idea of the rehab plan. That's
And it's
the
probably not
only
going to make that
way.
big. It's probably not going to make that big a difference just chucking a little bit of ice on there. But I
No,
think
but
for
they do
for
do it a
our
lot though.
for our population, like our general population, they see that and they're like, all right, I get injured. The first thing I got to do is chuck some ice on. or I've got to continually ice for the next, like every single day for the next
72
week, when
hours.
it's
Yeah.
gonna, slow down the inflammatory process, which is
Yeah.
somewhat counterproductive. And dive into that, but also dive into the fact that I did a post the other day how it's pissing me off how many people I see online, influencers, etc., that post
Oh,
themselves jumping in a nice bath,
don't
and you're
even
just
get me
like,
started.
we get it, guys. You're tough.
You
You're
have
a
money.
legend.
You can
You've
buy
got
one in your
money.
house.
Exactly.
Congratulations.
And
100%.
the proposed, supposed benefits have just been blown out of proportion.
Well, so again, we talked about it with LeBron and Ronaldo. Like, what do people see when they hop on and watch their favorite NBA player or their favorite footy player? What do
Yeah.
people see when Joe Blow pulls his hammy playing AFL and comes off and puts ice on it? You see it everywhere. So everyone automatically goes, oh, X did it and X is at this level. So I've done it. I must do what X did to get X's results. Or,
But
hey, if he
but
does it,
But then that general population person's probably sleeping 6 hours a night. Their nutrition's shit. They don't go
yeah,
to the gym. They probably walk
yeah,
3,000 steps a day.
they're having 4 beers while they have the ice on them, like 6 beers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's the problem is with that ice thing, like people don't want to, like that was actually my most viral video. It got up to like 3
Really
million views across stuff. The one
good
I did
stuff.
of Gay America. And that I copped so much. Like so much. That's where I get the LeBron and Ronaldo example is I did that and everyone was like, okay, bro, like you did your 4-year degree, but I'm going to trust you over LeBron. And I'm like, you are the problem. Like you
Yeah.
are the
Yeah.
problem. It's like, okay, man, like, but why does Cristiano do it then? I think I'm going to listen to him over you. I'm like, A, he hasn't talked to you and told you to do it. You've just seen a snippet of what he does. And with that, it's like people don't realize that swelling is a protective mechanism. It is a good thing. We need swelling. We don't want excess swelling. That's why you still compress, you still elevate so you can help that drainage and that cycle. But it's like when I did my ankle, I didn't even think about icing. The ambo on the side of the road gave me one because it was hurting. And I was like, okay, I'm going to just try and not hurt it. But an ice pack on an ankle for 10 minutes isn't going to change the swelling. It's when people go, I've hurt my ankle. I'm going to keep it in an ice cold bucket for 20 minutes on and off for 10 hours a day. And it never gets a chance to do its thing. And when we were gladiators and when we were about to fight in the Colosseum or had an injury, we knew the body has its way to do things. We got to stop thinking like, yes, okay, we may be a little bit smarter than our body now in certain realms, but our body has these processes and has developed and evolved with these mechanisms for a reason. Pain is a good thing for a reason. We get hot for a reason. We get swelling for a reason. Everyone goes, oh, swelling's really bad. It's like, no, let it swell, let it clear the debris and clear the injured tissue and the debris. Let it chuck in all these nice little molecules and chemicals and all these stuff to clear it up and start building everything, the tissue up again. Like, let the body do its thing for once. And it's like, yes, okay, maybe if you have excess swelling or maybe you don't want to have beers while you're doing it. But it's just, yeah, I think people, again, it's like the monkey example. It's been done for so long and they see everyone doing it. So they go, okay, I need to do it.
It's ingrained in society.
Exactly.
Like I work at a private school here and cover the physio side of things. And whenever anyone gets injured, I reckon 95% of them say, oh, should I ice it?
99.99%.
Yeah. And especially the parents,
Oh,
they're like, oh, how often should Joe Bloggs ice it? I'm like, well,
it's like
I'm going to counter
get
that
him,
for you.
yeah, don't let him stand on his ankle. Let him lay on the couch and watch Netflix. Keep his leg up, drink water, have good food, sleep well. You'll be sweet in 3 days.
Yeah. And then start to move and exercise as quickly as possible.
And this is another one, especially with back pain. It's like as early as you physically can, get moving.
Yeah.
Like peace and love. It's the peace and love acronym. Like you want to, yes, settle things, etc., but give it like load it, get it moving, be optimistic about it. Like,
get on a bike, do something. Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah.
Because the earlier you get moving, not only is it good for blood flow and loading, and we know it helps with healing and tissue healing, but it's like if you get it moving, you mentally you're going to feel better. The brain is going to be like, okay, it can't be that bad because I'm moving it and I'm getting it going. Whereas you then, if my dad or my nono hurt his back, I guarantee you they're on the couch for 3 to 4 days. Oh, I can't do it because my back's sore, and if I move, it's going to break. Like, and that's all it is. It's just like you said, it's ingrained in society. It's ingrained in people. It's XYZ does it, so I have to. We've just always done it this way. So here's the ice. But I think I don't want to be naive, but hopefully I think people are starting to realize, like I do get a lot of messages and my clients and a lot of people say, hey, I stopped doing this. And funny that I feel way better. Hey, I stopped icing and wow. And like I got one message a couple of weeks ago was, oh, I tore my hammy and I usually would ice at heaps, but I started doing my hammy bridges and walking and getting my gait normalized early. And I tried to run as soon as I could. And hey, I made it back for the game on the weekend. It's like, so it is getting out there, but I think naturally, and this isn't to sound bad at all, but if you have really smart people, you have to have people that are the opposite. It's a natural, there's always going to be opposites. So naturally, you're just going to have people who don't want to listen or are too naive or too stubborn to listen. Like, nah, what do you know? Like, oh, I've known this for ages. So I think part of like almost maturing as a practitioner and is realizing you're not going to be able to change everyone's mind. There are going to be people that you could present them. You could, like, there's that saying, it's like you could present a dumb person 20 of the best facts and they won't listen. You could present a really smart person half an idea and they'll be like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't think about that. I probably butchered the saying, but it's basically the smarter a person is, the less it takes to get them to think. And that's not to have a dig on anyone, but it's just naturally some people just might not even understand it and comprehend it, which is fine. That's what education's for. But most are just too stubborn and arrogant to be like, oh, I don't need to listen to you. What do you know? Like it's
exactly
so common on TikTok.
You need to be willing. You need to be willing to change your mind. And this is one of the reasons why I don't really ever comment on social media, because people take things out of context. And I just don't see the point, because people are just, as you said, stubborn, ignorant, arrogant. Yeah, it frustrates me. So I don't even really bother, because it's probably not worth my time.
No, not at all. I've learned
Last question.
the hard way.
Last question. Loved your work so far. It's been very fun. I've had a great time. How do we hit the golf ball further? So me being a golfer, I love my golf. Got a lot of my clients and friends that obviously listen to this podcast and they want to know how they can hit the ball further. How do we do it?
Okay. So there are so many parts to it. And so many people, again, go like, oh, it shits me to tears when you see, like you look at Seb and Stubbsy, they are swinging it so fast. Seb swung it the fastest it has ever been swung before. No one swung it faster than him. He's the record holder.
It's ridiculous. What was it? 160, was it?
It was 169.6, I think.
Miles an hour.
Yeah, that
the average and
speed.
And to put that into perspective for the listeners, the average on the PGA Tour is 113 miles an hour. Is it 114?
I think a driver is 125-ish or 120 maybe.
Nah.
Or maybe it's even lower. I think it's between 115 and 125.
So according to the TrackMan stats, it's 113.
There you go.
It may have gone up to 114. If you're above 120. If you're above 120 mile an hour on the PGA Tour, you're in the top echelon.
Yeah. And that's where it comes into things. So like everyone will like, we're swinging 120, right? Let's say you're above average. You get someone who then will go and do a golf program online and grinds my gears. They'll do a cable wood chop with 13 kilos. And they'll do slow, controlled, rhythmic things and go, oh yeah, I'm teaching my body the movement. Sports-specific training is one of the dumbest concepts we've ever made in our lives.
I 100% agree with that.
One of the dumbest. I don't know who made it, but if I met them, I'd clock them. Because people go, oh, I need to kick better. So I'm going to practice kicking with a cable around my thing so I train my hip flexor to be stronger. It's like, do you come into the gym to get better at chess and like do finger exercises or type? It's like, and this is what I say to every client who wants to do golf stuff is, yes, you have to swing fast. You need, like, first of all, it's technique. Go and get a coach. Like, that's the thing I need to do. I think I got to about 129 or 130 swing speed the first time I ever tried to just hit it hard. I've done no speed training, no nothing. It's just naturally from being strong and being decent mobility and stuff in the gym and playing golf since I was younger. But before anything, it needs to be technique. You need to actually be able to get in positions that are efficient and effective and maximize that force transfer from the ground up. Like all movement, I'm not going to go on a tangent now because I can speak for an hour, but gait and the principle of gait is it's like cracking a whip. Everyone thinks, oh, I need to, and this is where you find people get flicky with the wrists in golf, and I'm a culprit of it. Oh, I'm just going to move my hands really fast and that'll generate the club head speed. You look at every golfer, it is push down into the ground, extend hips and rotate, then trunk comes, then shoulders come, then the crack of the whip at the end is what generates the speed. You look at the technique, if you're not maximizing every Newton of force you can produce, you are never going to be as quick as you can. So first thing is that technical efficiency, that getting in nice, strong positions, having lag of the club. I'm not a golf instructor, but that's one of the main things. But then in the gym, we just need to support the body to swing fast and not get injured. That's all
Amen.
it is.
Yep.
Any sport is in the gym, lift heavy, move fast, do all planes of motion, rotate, twist, flex, extend, bend, carry, lift, jump, run, throw, anything.
It's a conduit it's a conduit to keep you on the course or the park or the field or whatever it is. Yep.
That's all gym is getting
Agreed.
your body as physically prepared, strength, endurance, speed, coordination, etc. wise.
Yep.
If you can maximize the force production into the ground, if you can maximize how far back you can stretch in like a cable fly, etc., you are maximizing the positions your body can get in. So when you go to swing a golf club, your body has been there so many times that when you try to get into these positions, your body is comfortable in deep ranges and it's not stiff and tight and protected.
Yeah.
It is you're trying to get leg strength, leg mobility, endurance, etc., so that you are a physically big, strong person. It doesn't take a genius to work out me versus 6-year-old kid. I'm going to produce a lot more force and be a lot stronger just by looking at me. It doesn't take a genius. Put on muscle and get stronger. So when you go and swing a golf club, obviously I'm going to swing a golf club harder and faster than a 6-year-old boy. It's duh. So use the gym to get as big and strong as you can, right? But in the gym, you still want to maintain rotation, flexion, extension, etc., so that you don't turn into a big fridge who can just press and squat. Don't go and use a cable chop. Go and use a med ball and twist,
throw it. Yeah, 100%.
Slam, throw, jump, catch, run.
And when it comes to using things like speed sticks, the rip sticks, all that sort of stuff, that's obviously super important because you're trying to do speed training, which means you need to go at speed, which you are going above and beyond what you would normally use. If you're using a driver normally, if you're at 120, you want to do that speed training above that, obviously.
Exactly. You're
increasing your ceiling.
Yeah, you look at it's this concept of maximal and submaximal. A person who can get a higher maximal is going to naturally have a higher submaximal because of the disparate. Like if you can bench 100 kilos for 10, or if you can bench 100 kilos for 1, you're probably going to be able to do 60 for like 10 reps. If you can only bench 60 kilos for 1, you're not going to have that, like your weaker movement, you're not going to be able to do as many reps. It's obvious. So if you can get that higher speed with a ripstick and get even faster, when you come back down, your speeds will naturally come up. Yeah. And it's you're not as much training the technique with that. You're just physically trying to move. When we talk about movement, it is a nervous system thing. It is a coordination, timing, sequencing, patterning thing. The faster and quicker you can do that for more reps, you overload with the speed. I'm not a golf coach, so don't ask me about golf coaches. If anyone wants a golf coach, I can probably find one for you. Like Seb and that, they use Craig Parker. He seems to be elite. I'm probably going to go see him eventually. But it's gym, work and get stronger in all these positions and fitter and etc. Speed stick, overload, and then get good in the technique and you will be quick. Do it for 3, 6, 12 months, 2 years. You will be fast. Like it's not rocket
and you've
science.
also got to transition that across to practice as well. So you need
100%.
to be hitting the ball hard in some of your sessions and as hard as you possibly can
Well, that's,
to
yeah,
then
I was about to
overload
say
it.
that.
And you got to
It,
middle it also helps in terms of ball speed. If your smash factor's high and you're hitting the ball in the
exactly.
middle of the face, that obviously helps.
Well, you look at like it's the same example for sprinting. People go, "Oh, Hayden, like it's one of the most common questions is how do I get faster?" What do you think my answer is every time? Run
Sprint
more and
fast.
sprint faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like people go, "What's the best exercise for sprinting?" Fucking sprinting. Like
Yeah.
it shouldn't take a rock. Like the more you sprint and the harder you push and the more you try, while using the gym to keep your hammies and calves and stuff robust and resilient and anti-fragile, you're going to be faster naturally because you can train more and train faster and train harder. Like you look at the things where they do sprinting, and have you seen where they have the like almost like a horse cart and they run behind it?
Yeah. Yep.
They it's a trailer and they pull it along. They're doing that to get rid of the air resistance so you can run faster than you normally would. So your body then gets used to running at a faster speed and it can coordinate better and the timing and the activation, pre-activation, all these things at a higher speed. You then go back to normal running. Of course, you're going to be faster. But people go, oh, I'll go in the gym and do some power work and not spend a day going to the range trying to swing as fast as they can and wonder why they're not faster. You have to, any function or skill is task specific. You have to actually do that thing again and again and again and again and get good at it. You don't expect to play chess once and be really good at it. But for some reason with our body, it's like I can do everything else but play chess and I'll be good. So yeah, you can tell I get very passionate and frustrated by these things. So
No, I love it, mate. I love it. And I agree. It frustrates me when people come and see me and they're saying things like, I want a specific training program for basketball and this and that. And like, yeah, you can put some things in there that are specific to the sport that they're going to do, like jumping and these things. Like if they're say, for instance, they play pool or something like that versus basketball, things are going to be maybe a little bit different. But the nuts and bolts, the 80% of the program's probably going to be very similar.
Pareto's principle, 80-20 rule. Like it's literally that. It's do 80% of the stuff is going to always be the same, but maybe like you said, the pool player might do a bit more upper body work and rotation or whatever. I don't know. Do you even fucking train for pool? Probably not. But the basketball player, you might probably want to do some max jumps, some drop jumps, some different plyos, some all this different thing, maybe some more quad strength because they're going to need to have a strong patella tendon and all this. Like, so you can be specific, but you can't actually be specific.
But it doesn't need to look like the sport.
No,
That's the thing that pisses me off. I hate that as well. Like I see this a lot with golfers and tennis. Tennis is a huge one, mate.
Tennis,
I work with a fair few tennis players, and a lot of my tennis players that I've been coaching for a while, they often send me stuff on Instagram being like, because they now know that they don't need to do this stupid shit.
Yeah, I love getting sent that stuff.
They send me the videos from like these top-notch, like ATP top 30 players or WTA top 30 players that are doing these crazy, stupid shit on like BOSUs and stuff. And they're just like, how about these idiots? You know,
I know. And I get sent. I love when I see that. Like, I get a message like that. I'm like, yes, because it's almost like you've converted someone. It's like
100%.
It's like a success thing, and it's you look at like
It's like we're a cult. And we're finally we've progressed to cult status.
We're the good side of it though. But you look at last one before we won't go into any more tangents. But people go, oh, oldies need to squat. It's like, yes, I get it. You want to get them task specific and get them up and down over a chair. But why is a leg extension not functional? You're giving them quad strength.
Yeah.
Why is a thrust or a glute extension machine for an oldie not functional?
You're building their ceiling of that muscle.
Yeah. You're getting the muscle stronger and with more endurance. Like how in what world does that not improve their function?
Yeah.
Like people go, only single leg squats are functional or whatever. Like I've had so many arguments. It's like, why is a single leg squat functional and a single leg press isn't? Like it actually, I genuinely ask that because I genuinely don't know people's thoughts. If anything, the single leg press is more functional. You could argue balance and stuff, but really, unless you're trying to do a single leg squat.
But the limitation is balance.
Exactly.
So you can load it up with a single leg press, or you do like a Hatfield Bulgarian split squat, and there's more stability. It's like,
And you're telling me if you can't stabilize 200 kilos, you can't stabilize your own body weight? Like, I get balance, I understand it and proprioception, but you're telling me you can't do a 200 kilo leg press, single leg for 5 reps. You can't do a single leg body weight. It's like, I get it, but I also don't. And that's where it gets tricky and nuanced. But yeah, I could go on for hours with this stuff.
love your work, Hayden. It's been a great chat. I've had a lot of fun. It's probably one of the podcasts in the last 12 months I've had the most fun on. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very similar to me, somewhat kindred spirits, I feel.
Yeah, it's just I've always been like this. I've always been passionate about things I do, and sometimes some people don't like it, but that's the fun of it. You're gonna always have people who don't like things, and then you have people like you who are going, "You like me, I love it." So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for having me on.
my pleasure. We'll have to do it soon. Another one. We need to.
Absolutely. I'll have to get you on your. I'll have to get you on mine. I'm just about to start getting some. I'm gonna have some cool people on actually, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, hopefully I can fall into the category of
You'll
cool.
fall, yeah.
So
I'll get you on there. Don't worry. Just because you like
appreciate.
golf. The
Yeah.
AFL thing, though, is it's a bit of a. We'll discuss that later. I'm a rugby
Well,
boy, so
I
we'll
can
see.
tell. I can see in the background.
Yeah, actually, that's what I got. Yeah, I always forget I have that. I got that from working with Bateman. So I played league for one season, but I was a rugby union boy going through private school in Canberra.
Right.
So that's just for the show, I guess.
I won't hold that against you.
I'm a Sharkies boy, not a Raiders boy. Don't get it
Really?
twisted.
There you go.
Yeah, Sharkies boy. They're on tonight, 6 o'clock. I gotta go prepare, get my kid on.
Sounds good, mate. Well, let's do it again soon. And before you go, just for the listeners out there, if they've gotten to this stage in the podcast, they may have given up, but where can they find you?
Instagram, so Hayden Egerton _RRP. I've actually just started the Pain Codex Instagram. I can't remember what it's called, but it's somewhere there in my bio. And then I've got the Resilience Institute podcast that I've got to get cracking again. And then yeah, just on Instagram mainly. Find me on TikTok, but I'm not on there as much anymore. I got to get, that's one on my to-do list.
Sounds good. I'll tag you in all of the show socials that I put up
Cool.
so people can find you. So thanks again, mate, and we'll do it again soon.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, mate.
No worries. Stay strong.